Breaking news in Formula One. The FIA could activate a Plan B and reduce engine power during the first races of the season. And the reason behind this potential Plan B might be Adrian Newey. Plus, Lewis Hamilton sends a clear message about the 2026 season. You'll see all of that and much more right here on Aftermath Racing. And if you don't want to miss anything from the world of Formula One, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because we'll have plenty of videos coming your way. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and show your support for our work. Let's start today's news roundup with the bombshell of the day. The 2026 regulations could change before the very first race of the season, the Australian Grand Prix next week. The reason? The problems we saw during preseason testing. Cars shutting down unexpectedly, batteries collapsing, cars losing power at the end of the straights, and several other issues, all of them related to the new hybrid power units. Because of that, reports indicate that the F1 Commission has already prepared a Plan B and discussed it with the teams, aiming to prevent the debut of this new F1 era from turning into a global embarrassment with multiple cars failing during races. According to leaked information, the Commission met and put a drastic proposal on the table in case the first two races of the year turn into a festival of breakdowns and retirements. And the plan is simple and painful. They want to force an agreement to reduce maximum electric power by between 15 and 30%. The goal is to reduce thermal stress on the batteries and energy recovery systems, allowing the engines to actually finish races without exploding. But what's the price of that reliability? Clearly, lap time. If you remove up to 30% of electric power from a car that heavily depends on that energy on the straights, the impact on performance is brutal. Simulations suggest that if Plan B is activated, the cars could become between 1.5 and 2.5 seconds slower per lap. That would be a massive step backwards in performance, potentially bringing Formula One dangerously close to the lap times of other categories at certain tracks on the calendar. As you can imagine, this news hit the paddock like a bomb, and political tensions behind the scenes have already started. Some teams are not facing major issues. Mercedes, for example, is one of the strongest voices against such a radical power cut. Ferrari and Red Bull have also managed to produce very competitive engines, fast, reliable, and efficient. They've made it clear that if there is a reduction, they want it to be minimal, no more than 15%. So they aren't punished for building strong engines. Meanwhile, Honda, for example, has not managed to produce a power unit that works properly. And that old argument is resurfacing. If your engine breaks, that's your problem. You shouldn't reduce everyone else's performance because of it. So Formula One is walking a fine line at the start of this season. It must choose between ultra-fast cars that may not finish races or significantly slower cars that guarantee a show until the checkered flag. I want to know where you stand on this. Should each team deal with its own problems, or should F1 step in and, if necessary, limit power to protect the grid as a whole? And speaking of problematic engines, let's talk about Aston Martin. Adrian Newey himself has spoken out after the team's dramatic weeks in Bahrain. The information comes from respected BBC journalist Andrew Benson, who reported that last Wednesday's tense F1 Commission meeting, the one we just mentioned, involved team principals and the FIA sitting down to discuss the reliability disaster seen during testing in Bahrain. But what the BBC has now revealed is what actually triggered that discussion. During the meeting, Adrian Newey, the aerodynamic mastermind hired by Aston Martin this season, and now the team's technical leader, asked to speak and made a brutal confession about his own engine supplier. According to high-level sources, Newey stated categorically that the Honda engine cannot recover energy even at the lower threshold of 250 kilowatts, let alone reach the 350 kilowatts required by the 2026 regulations. To put that into perspective, the 2026 rules require the electric motor to recover and deliver 350 kilowatts of power, nearly 470 horsepower, purely from electric energy. The system works like this. The car brakes, recovers thermal and kinetic energy, stores it in the battery, and then deploys it on the straights. What Newey admitted is that Honda's system is so inefficient, so poorly designed, that they can't regenerate even 250 kilowatts. As a result, the battery runs empty halfway through the lap. That's why we saw that embarrassing situation in the speed trap data. Honda was 16 kilometers per hour slower than Red Bull on the straights. If the battery doesn't recover energy under braking, then when Fernando Alonso reaches the middle of the main straight, the electric energy suddenly runs out. In Formula One, this is called clipping. The electric motor simply shuts off, and the car is pushed only by the combustion engine, which becomes overloaded, overheats its components, and, as we saw in Bahrain, literally collapses and stops. So Aston Martin's problems are starting to make more and more sense. And the F1 Commission's attempt to implement Plan B may actually have been a cry for help from Aston Martin and Honda, supported by the FIA, to avoid cars stopping on track in Melbourne. The situation for Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll heading into Australia is desperate. The AMR 26 will hit the track powered by a unit that lacks power, fails to regenerate energy, and risks shutting down at any moment if pushed to the limit. Now we have to wait and see whether Formula One and the FIA will make changes or whether Honda can somehow fix these issues in time. I want to hear your opinion. How do you analyze Aston Martin's tense situation? Can they solve it? Or is this season going to be embarrassing for them? And to close today's news update, let's talk about Lewis Hamilton. There has always been speculation about whether he might retire, especially now after moving to Ferrari and going through this preseason period. Hamilton himself used social media to send a message to those questioning his future. After testing Ferrari's new car, he not only dismissed retirement rumors, but also switched back into a mode we haven't seen in a long time, Hamilton with fire in his eyes. In recent years, whenever things went wrong, much of the media began predicting that his retirement was near. And with the massive 2026 regulation changes, there were rumors that if Ferrari didn't deliver a winning car immediately, he might walk away. But Ferrari's car looks strong, possibly one of the best on the grid, and the narrative has completely changed. Right after preseason testing ended, Hamilton posted a message praising the team's work at the factory. He said it's fascinating to see a machine being built from scratch and delivered the phrase Italian fans were waiting to hear. He feels renewed, re-energized, and he's not going anywhere. He asked fans to stay by his side. Perhaps the most honest part of his statement was when he admitted that the last few years had taken a mental toll. For a moment, he said, he forgot who he was. But thanks to the support of fans, they won't see that low-confidence version of Hamilton again. He finished by saying he knows what needs to be done, effectively admitting that the ground effect era cars hurt him, but that he's back. Now we wait to see whether he will adapt well to these new regulations and new cars, which seem to better match his driving style. So I want your opinion. Do you believe Hamilton will continue at Ferrari for several more years? And if he struggles during the 2026 season, could that mark the end of his career? Join the conversation in the comments below.